Hey everybody, it's Eric. How are you today? Well, as many of you know, I have autism, and I have been reading the book Neurotribes by Steve Silberman. Also, as many of you know, I just finished recovering from a 6-year traumatic bout with long COVID. Just about ruined my life. About 2 years into having long COVID, I learned something else, that I'm autistic. That's why I've been reading Neurotribes. Holy cow, the history of autism is something else. Yes, it's a big, thick read, but if you're autistic or know somebody or have a loved one who's autistic, I can't really recommend more a book that will tell you all about the history of autism and what it's like to have autism. One of the things that's been most enlightening and very sorrowful is how autistic people have been treated down through the ages. Of course, many people have heard of Asperger syndrome, and it's named after a doctor from Austria named Asperger. There was another doctor at the same time who quote-unquote discovered autism. His name is Connor. And it's really, really sad to read the chapters about Nazi Germany, and basically they euthanized anybody that was autistic. And they also, even the saner people, called autistic people early on child psychopaths. And even in the United States, if you were labeled autistic or one of the other titles they gave it, you were pretty much locked up in a sanitarium. And for many, many years. In fact, it wasn't until the early 1970s that autistic children were guaranteed a public education. We were considered hopeless. Causes to just be tossed away, set aside from the world. And that's just terrifying. The history of autism is quite sad. I'm glad we've gotten to a place in the world now, whether a person is nonverbal or verbal like me, low functioning or high functioning, we don't just discard autistic people. Again, I highly recommend the book Neurotribes by Steve Silberman. And that's just one thing. Another thing, I've been reading an awful lot about autism, watching podcasts, watching TV shows, documentaries, whatever I can get my hands on. And I'm just surprised by how many times they bring on experts in autism that are neurotypical people and not autistic people themselves. It never seems that autistic people get a voice. Now, granted, there are a lot of people who have autism that can express themselves or articulate the condition very well. But then there's people like me. Where are the people like me in interviews, on news programs, in documentaries? We're just not listened to. We want to hear the experts talk about it, but we don't want autistic people themselves to talk about the condition. That's very frustrating. So while I appreciate books like Neurotribes and all of the case studies from famous scientists, Thomas Cavendish to Nikola Tesla and many, many others down through time, we need to listen to autistic voices more. I'm one. I can tell you what I think autism is from experience, not from a book. What I have in common with nonverbal autistic people is we get stuck in loops. Our heads get stuck in a loop and we can't get out of it. And people always say, don't dwell on it, let it go. Well, that's not easy for somebody like me. In fact, it's darn near impossible at times. And if you look at unemployment rates of autistic people, even for high-functioning ones like me, and again, that's not a medical term, it's just a social term, it's upwards of 50 to 60%. Because why? Because when our mind gets stuck on something, we can't let it go. And that sometimes doesn't work out very well in the workplace. Another thing is pattern recognition. I literally don't see the same world that a neurotypical person sees. I see the world through patterns. You know that movie Predator, where Predator sees an infrared and once in a while you get to see that? Or I don't know if you've ever seen one of those special cameras where they show you what life is like for a fly, or a fly sees, or any other animal that has interesting eyesight. Well, autistic people simply don't perceive reality the same way neurotypical people do. One way to think about that is the fact that we see in patterns. We see in pattern recognition. Or we will get fixated on something, and it's very hard to let go. And that's just one of many ways that we perceive reality differently. And for that, over time, like I said, well into the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, autistic people were considered psychopaths. We were discarded by society because we were other. We didn't see the same world. We didn't engage in mannerisms and etiquette sometimes the way others did. And for that, we were set aside, sometimes murdered en masse. Tragic. But thankfully, we've gotten to a point in time now where when I tell somebody I'm autistic, they might look at me and go, I don't think so. But if they get to know me, they'll realize I am. But just being able to say and express that I'm autistic, or when referencing somebody else, that person's autistic, people know now at least to take a step back in terms of understanding. That person understands the world a little differently than the rest of us. And we're going to give them some latitude with respect to that. Anyway, those are my today thoughts on autism. I'm here at the Cloisters. It's an old 12th century monastery mock-up with a lot of artifacts from that time, the Renaissance and the medieval period, here in Upper Manhattan, called Inwood. It's beautiful. It's very peaceful up here today. I've made separate posts about my visit, some of the artifacts and the architecture that I found really beautiful today. Again, check out Neurotribes by Steve Silverman. Like I said, it's a thick book. If you're autistic, know somebody autistic, or just want to learn more about neurodivergence and its history, give it a read. Peace.